Hey everyone, Shane here with ROA Off-Road. Today is another Thursday Campfire Rant, and today I want to talk about why EVs suck and why they're terrible for off-roading, towing, and overlanding. You ready for this? Let's go. Hey, welcome back again to another Thursday Campfire Rant. Don't forget, we have a playlist and there's tons of different topics we cover. Today, I want to talk a little bit about EVs. Now, I get questions asked all the time. Just yesterday, I believe, we had a question that came in and said, hey, can the Roamer 1 charge an EV? Do you have a way to add a port and to be able to charge my EV? And the answer is yes. The Roamer 1 can charge an EV. That's pretty cool, right? But is it very practical? That's the question, and the answer is no, it's not. It's not very practical. Not yet anyways. Will it be someday? Maybe, possibly. Let me break down a little bit about what I'm talking about when it comes to why EVs are terrible for towing trailers, why you really truly can't charge them off-grid, especially by any trailer out on the market, not even the Roamer 1 or the Pause, which have the same battery bank size and similar solar arrays, why they can't actually charge them. There's a lot of things to break into. I'm not like an authority on EVs. I do want to make that as a disclaimer, but I have owned a Tesla for 5 months and I got rid of it, bought it, got rid of it. I loved the idea that I didn't have to go to the gas station, but the range was terrible. I mean, it has like one of the best ranges out there, but I wanted to go camping, wanted to go off grid, and at the end of the day, it was not very practical. We drove it down to Moab one time and barely made it, got it charged, couldn't even drive it home because on the way to Moab is downhill, so I got a lot of regen charging, but on the way back, it was mostly uphill. So I ended up having to stop on the way home. And was I towing a trailer? No. Go check out the guys over at TFL Truck. They do a lot of tow testing and they do it with EV trucks, and it's just not practical. The second you hook up something to the back of an EV, your range almost gets cut in half. So you're maybe 200 to 300, depending on what you're driving. Claimed range now is 100. It's crazy how much you'll lose when you're actually towing something. I actually recently had a Hummer. I don't know if you saw that. We were testing out a Hummer with the Roamer 1. We really liked the idea about it. I even said I was going to do a cross-country trip with a Roamer 1 and a Hummer EV. We're talking about maybe getting one of these and doing some cross-country traveling in it with the Roamer 1. I want to know everybody's thought on that. It only took me a week of towing the Roamer 1 with the Hummer EV to realize it was a terrible mistake and I should never do it. Another story I want to tell you is we've had people come here that have purchased new EVs to come and pick up a trailer. We had a guy just recently, got a Ford Lightning from Boise, Idaho. I think he was Boise, somewhere up there. Drove it down. He had to stop multiple times to charge before he even got to here to pick up his trailer. He hadn't even had a trailer hooked up yet. He thought he was going to make it down in one drive. He ended up stopping multiple times, and it took him hours, almost half the day to get here. And he got down here. He's like, listen, I want the trailer. Here's my money. Here's the check. I'm going back home and I'm going to pick up my gas truck because there's no way I'm going to try to tow this back home. I had to stop multiple times to even get here without a trailer. So like the practicality of towing with an EV is, it's really not there yet. Now, maybe if you're going from campground to campground, you're in cities and you have good access to charging everywhere. But if you want to go off grid, no way. Now, let me give you a few numbers on batteries just so you understand. The new Hummer EV, the battery size is just over 200 kilowatts, okay? A Tesla, depending on the model, usually you're gonna be looking at Teslas that are around 100 kilowatts. So what is that? What is 100 kilowatts, and what does that compare to the Roamer battery or the solar array on the roof? The Roamer battery bank is 1.3 kilowatts. So there you have it, 200 kilowatts on a Hummer EV that can drive a few hundred miles when you're towing, half that. And here you have the battery bank on the Roamer 1, 1.3 kilowatts. Like, look at that comparison, that's crazy, 200 to 1. So some people are like, oh, can I charge that off? Yeah, I guess you could. We could put a port and you could plug it in and you might You might be able to get a half to a 1 kilowatt before the roamer one says, stop using my battery, I'm gonna die. And then you might add a couple miles to your EV, which is just not very practical. Well, what about the solar? Well, the solar, you're also roughly looking at 1.2 kilowatt on the roof, and the entire roof is covered. There's no more space on the roof, and you have 1 kilowatts of solar on the roof. So what does that mean? If you're sitting at the perfect spot with the sun directly over the top of your trailer, your panels are nice and clean, and you're getting the perfect sun efficiency, that means you might put potentially 1 kilowatt of power back into your EV from the solar. That means in a best case scenario, you could get 1 kilowatt in an hour during the heat of the day and not drain the batteries on your trailer and get 1 kilowatt over to your vehicle. So to charge your 200 kilowatt battery or 100 kilowatt battery up by 1 kilowatt. That's crazy when you think about it. It's not very practical, right? And all day long, the sun is moving up and down, so you're never getting 100% efficiency. You're never gonna get that 1 kilowatt. Maybe through the whole day, you might get a couple kilowatts, depending on where you're at, a few kilowatts. If you're very lucky and you got perfect sun, you might get that, but it's not very, very practical when you think about it. I'm just trying to break this down and make it simple, because a lot of times when you're looking at trailers, we say, this has 1,080 amp hours. Well, what's 1,080 amp hours? That's kind of confusing. Well, they're 12-volt batteries, they're lithium. What kind of batteries do cars use? Don't they use lithium batteries? Yes, they do. How many amps do they have? Well, they don't usually talk about amps. They talk in kilowatts. So that's kind of why I wanted to explain the conversion a little bit. Simplistic. I'm not digging too deep into this. I wanted to make it pretty simple for everybody to understand why it's not super practical. I saw a YouTuber a little while ago taking an off-road trailer off-road with an EV, and he plugged it in, and I was like, what a joke. This is not like a practical thing. And it kind of felt a little bit like you're not really going to be able to charge that EV with that system. You might get a little bit of charge. We even did it. We plugged in the Hummer into the Roamer one, showed that you could do it, but when we started playing with it, we're like, this is just so unpractical. It's not really going to work at the end of the day. So you might be asking, well, why don't you guys do a bigger battery bank? Why don't you get a battery bank that's big enough to charge an EV off the trailer? Why don't you get a bigger solar array? Well, like solar array is like what you have on your roof. Where are we gonna do it? There's a lot of innovative things we could do. I'm sure we could do like some slide outs. You've seen those live-in trailers. Those are pretty cool. They have like these awning slide outs, but those I think only have like a 2 or 3 kilowatt solar system. I guess you could put a bigger battery bank. We're talking off-road trailers, limited space, limited size. Like how many batteries do you want to put in this trailer? Yeah, I suppose we could make a huge battery bank underneath the floor. So let me give you another spec that you might not know. Do you know how much the Hummer EV weighs? Remember, 200 kilowatt battery bank. It weighs just over 9,000 pounds. And I've been in that Hummer. It's plastic and aluminum. It's very light. The construction, the materials of the vehicle itself is extremely light. I would be shocked if the whole vehicle was much over 2,000 pounds. So a majority of that 9,000 pounds is batteries. Total weight of our batteries in the Roamer 1 are about 300 pounds. So the trailer's over 6,000 pounds, 300 pounds in batteries, right? When you start figuring out the math, what? You want us to make you a trailer that weighs 14,000 pounds so you could have a 200 kilowatt system on it? How are you gonna charge this 200 kilowatt system? It would be crazy, it would be awesome. Could we do it? Yes, we could do it. Will we do it? I don't know, maybe in the future if solar gets way more efficient, if solar can actually start bringing in way more power for the size of it, maybe we could do that someday. I don't know. They make these solar awnings that come out. They don't bring in that much wattage, but maybe they'll get better over time and we could make some really cool deployable solar system and have a massive battery bank. But once again, it's like, the technology's not there. Is it gonna be there? A few years ago, running an air conditioning off-grid, it was unheard of. I bet you if you walk into most dealers and say, can you run an AC off-grid? Most of them will still tell you, no way. A few years ago, almost everybody said no way. There were a few people on the fringe that were doing it. Now here we are at ROA running most of our units off-grid with air conditioning. It's pretty cool. Like the technology has advanced drastically in the last few years. I think over the next few years, it's gonna get even better. But right now, today, where we sit in 2023, charging an EV off of a trailer is not very practical. I wish it was, because I would love to tell everybody that reaches out, can I charge my EV off your Roamer one? I would love to say absolutely, but the answer is no. You can't really. I mean, technically, yes, you could charge it, but not for very long, and it would just drain your batteries way too fast. So hopefully you learned something new. This is why I bought an EV and then I sold it recently after that, because the place where EVs are amazing are in cities where there's tons of pollution. You go to California, even the Valley in Salt Lake, the pollution gets really bad in there. It's really cool to have an EV so your smoke pipe is not shooting out smog. I guess that's a great thing for it. Also, it's really nice and convenient to not go to gas stations. And I mean, if you're commuting somewhere back and forth every day the same amount of time and you never have to go to get gas, that to me is a really good use for an EV. Should you be trying to get an EV to go off-grid or off-road, I would recommend against it. Plus, most of the EVs are not very off-road capable, quite frankly. I know some people might argue that, but I mean, most of them are on airbags, and that's not really a good off-road system for a vehicle. You want to be able to be on coils and shocks to be able to articulate more for a vehicle. They're comfortable for off-roading, but they're not as good as like a Jeep or a Power Wagon or a truck, not yet anyway, so maybe they will be in the future. Also, the torque on the Power is kind of sketchy, you know, it gives you too much power sometimes, you might break something off-roading. But there you have it. This is not a I hate EV videos, but there's a place for them, and hopefully in the future there will be more in the off-road world, but right now I don't think it is. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out other videos in our playlist, and we'll see you next Thursday. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.